Well, I certainly don't feel like it's necessary to show you every single cap being replaced here. I have tweezers. These are JBC PA-1200. Super awesome for this, and I've showed these in the Duo vids. But if you don't have, I definitely suggest doing the snap them off method. These are Exolite 170Ds, and you just get down there right at the base of the cap above the plastic and just clip them off, and then you can break that plastic base off, and then you can just wipe away the legs with your regular soldering iron. But I'm hoping all I have to do is get on either side. Let's do this leaky 22. Get on either side of it with these. Well, that was weird. You see that? I don't know what happened there. These got glowing red hot. So anyway, that's basically the gist of it. And it definitely got that pad hot. See the thing? Completely lifted. I have to figure that one out. I definitely want, I mean, it's very common for that to happen if the electrolytic has leaked out and gotten underneath the pad. This one actually didn't remind me of anything that had leaked, and the legs were still nice and shiny. That one definitely was. So what I'll do is I'll go through and get rid of all the caps that are on here, and then I'll spray it down with the purple cleaner, rinse it again with rubbing alcohol, and then dry it. One of the other things I didn't talk about was the crystal on these. Was it Choi Jimmy said something about hue card operation after a cap job had some problems, and I don't remember what the problem was. Something about a flickering screen or something, and he believed it had something to do with either the crystal or one of the pots that controls it. Maybe it was a different crystal, because it said something about a temperature control, and this one's not. So I think I'll skip ahead to getting all these off. Okay, so it took me a while to figure out why it was so rough. If you see all the red spots right here, that's freaking glue. So apparently this was the bottom side of the board whenever they put it through the reflow oven, or if it was wave soldered, I don't know. I would assume, well, that looks hand soldered. So that connector was put on like by hand. That looks like it was put on by hand. Even the big connector on the back looks like it was put on by hand. You can just tell because there's flux still on the board. But apparently this was top side, maybe because of these larger chips. And this is the bottom side. You can see the glue. It's not on every one of them though. It's really weird. So I did end up destroying some pads. That one, about all four of these. I don't know why they were so rough. And then this one right here. Oh, that one looks like it started pulling up too. as long as the pad is still there and connected to the trace, then putting the cap or the ceramic on there and soldering it to both will suffice. It's not the greatest, but like these up here, I'll have to run a bodge wire to whatever trace it was going to. Looks like it might have just been a real tiny trace off to one end of it. I'm not real sure. So now I'm gonna go clean it, and I actually count 42 surface mount electrodes, and I put these in a separate bag. I don't really throw these in the trash. Someday I'll figure out, you know, where to put these that's more environmentally safe. All right, it's clean, dry, and I'm gonna start with some 100 microfarad ceramic caps, and on the N10 there's 6 of them, and I'm just gonna start with the one right there in the middle. It looks like there is one there, that one, and these two. Like I said though, if you want to do this, then definitely download the cap chart pictures off of PC Engine FX forums. And see, tweezers. Now, normally what I do is add some solder to the pads, like so, and if I'm having trouble, I'll actually add some flux to each pad. And also on this pad I had some, looks like melted plastic from the tweezers, melting the plastic base of the surface mount caps. Can't hurt to clean that off. And I'll just take the cap, and the reason I love these, or love this tip so much, is because it can heat both pads at the same time while I lay the cap on there, and I can also go back and add solder if I feel like there really wasn't enough on there. And that's how it's done. I definitely don't plan on showing you every single cap that I do. I mean, who really wants to see that, right? So if I do use the flux, I'll definitely go back and clean the board again, just with rubbing alcohol. And actually I have a toothbrush that I use just for cleaning flux, and using rubbing alcohol just for that. So I think I'll finish this, but then we'll do some more with the S10 boards. I just remembered something I was gonna say. Doing it with the ceramics also makes it easy because you don't have to start in the center and work your way out. And if you're using through hole leaded, radial caps like this, and you're cutting and bending the legs like the old way, then you want to start in the center and work your way out. That way you don't block, and if you lay a cap right there, you're all the way around it, and then trying to get the one in the center is going to be a pain in the ass. But with the ceramics, you've got plenty of clearance. I could surround that cap right there completely with ceramics and still be able to get in there with my tip right here, no problem. And that's an angled, I forget the name of this one. It's like an angled beveled edge, something like that, but it's the 939, I believe, for the JBC, and it's one of my favorite tips. I use it pretty well exclusively, honestly. It's just, it was one of those I was like, well, I'll never use that. And then when I bought my first JBC, it came with a bunch of these, and all my other tips were crap, actually. So I ended up using this one and just fell in love with it. I used to use just a regular chisel type, But now this is all I ever want to use. And I will reiterate that with ceramics, there's no polarity. So, you know, with the leaded caps like that, there is polarity. See the big stripe with the negative symbol on it? So you got to get those oriented correctly on here, or they could blow. With the ceramics, we don't have that problem. Another tip on this is to count out how many caps you need and lay them aside. That way you know if you missed any for a certain size. I've done this many times, even with the leaded caps. You don't have a big bag of them and you'd be going through and cutting and bending legs and stuff and whatever, and you're like, did I miss any? Did I use them all? Because the cap charts do show you exactly how many, you know, of each size that you need. So, like I said, get them out of the pile and lay them aside, and then you know when you're done. I'll give you an idea of how I'm actually repairing those ones with the pad that got lifted. I've actually scraped away some trace right next to the cap, and I'm just going to add some solder, some flux and some solder to that trace and to the other side of the cap, and then just lay some kind of conductor between them. This one I was able to fix just by moving the cap to the exposed and soldered trace and just check continuity to that via. And that one I had to use a little bit of magnet wire to get it to that via. The trace was pretty well gone all the way to the via. And there you can see the one with the exposed trace, and this is my wire, and I actually check continuity from the cap edge to the via, and we're good. So we just snip off a little bit of magnet wire, and we're good to go on those four. So I've decided I'm definitely not doing the N10 with the tweezers ever again because of the glue. I think I ended up destroying more pads than I saved by doing it with the cut method. But I'm looking at the S10 boards now, and honestly I think these are probably safe to use the tweezers, because if I look at the bottom side of the board and I look really close, I can actually see evidence of glue on the components so that would make this the bottom. You just got to look on the sides of the components, and if you see just a little bit of color, you know, I think this is a red glue, then you know that's glue. So these caps shouldn't be glued, and I think it's the same on the main board. Well, I need to look at that. That's a C3. That got crusty. It looks like maybe some cat fluid got to it and really went to town on it. I see the problem is those vias and traces right there next to it look pretty bad. But yeah, if I look real close on the sides of these components, I do think I see some glue. It's really hard to make out any really good ones to show you, though. It's funny because other than the chips and the caps, you know, and a couple crystals, there's no surface mount components. I guess these inductors are surface mount. But I'm looking for, you know, resistors and capacitors, and they're all on the bottom. So it would definitely make sense that this is the bottom when I went through the oven or the wave solder machine. Let's just let's cut one off here. God, that looks terrible. Always put your finger over that shit, because that can go right in your eye. See, this one is so bad, I'm going to do the cut method anyway, just for this reason. The tweezers are not going to have good heat conduction because all of the pads are so corroded. That corrosion is like an insulating barrier. I'd really have to dig in. You know, and those tweezers are not sharp. They got a very dull, rounded edge to them, so wouldn't be very effective. Some of these are going to be hard to cut, looks like, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut all these off and do what I did there. And okay, yeah, C337. Let's see if I can mark that one, because that one does not have a cap originally. That might actually just clean off, but I'll make a note of it. Yeah, I'm going to cut them all off, get them all exposed like that, and then I'm going to clean it. And I'm going to scrub the shit out of it and see if I can expose those legs a little better, and then I can just come in and wipe them off with this, hopefully a little easier. Well, that took about 16 minutes to do both boards, and man, I am not hopeful for either of these. There's going to be a lot of repair work. I don't know if I slowed down enough in the video, but I think maybe that one, there was a couple of them in here that just fell off the board as soon as I started to squeeze on it. And I know there was a couple pads that came up pretty easy on this one too. That one's gone. But they all look really, really rough. That is no good. Plus, I made one hell of a mess. And I forgot about my tip about a quarter way into it to not cut all the way through the can of the cap. That way you can actually grab onto the top half and pull, and it'll bring the bottom half with it, and hopefully that rubber piece too. And that way all you have to do is you can snip the very top of the leg of both legs and the plastic will come off, or you can break the plastic in half and then you can snip legs. You don't really have to snip them after the plastic's off, but yeah, I'm gonna soak the shit out of these for a while and scrub them real good and see if we can get rid of some of that corrosion on these legs. Well, I'm having a go at one of the other S10 boards with the tweezers, and I can tell you it is not going well, and I finally figured out why. There is like next to zero thermal relief on some of these pads. There's 3 full sides connected to that pad on that ground right there. I think that was the ground. Yeah, I think so. You know, and then one whole side on the positive side of that pad. So all the heat is getting just sucked right out of the tweezers. So maybe cutting would be faster on these boards. I didn't go to all the caps because some of these are corroded, and would just take even more time, but you know, the longer it's on there, like that pad right there got lifted a little bit, so again, the longer it's on there, the more heat it takes and the easier it is for pads to lift, especially on pads or caps where one pad has just a little trace going to it and then the other one is big and thick. You just have very little control over it. So like that one I got lucky on, because a little trace on that one and a thicker one on that one. I can't remember where the other ones were. There was one that had a really thin trace going to a pad, but it just doesn't seem like the best bet for tweezers on these, unfortunately. Well, here I am contradicting myself. I've already pulled what looks like maybe at least half of the caps off with the tweezers. It just, you know, it leaves the pads free of legs, and there's a lot less trash. But it looks like I'm down to a bunch of non-shiny pads on the outsides, and I'm not convinced that's... I don't know. Just depends, I guess, how bad they are. It's just nice to get them off without cutting. Saves time. Especially the ones like right there, there's just small traces going to each pad, so there's a lot less heat being sucked out by the ground plane and stuff. Like these two right here, I can tell you those are not only corroded, but connected to a large ground and power plane, or very wide and large trace. Problem is I kind of got to go in under the plastic, and my tweezer tips get all nasty, and that's just more heat insulation. Clean those off every once in a while. That method kind of feels best. Just leave it on there, pull up with some needle nose. Yeah, the rest of these are pretty crusty. I'm just going to go ahead and cut those off and do it the other way. Alright, so the first pair is back from being dried. I ended up scrubbing it with a toothbrush, and I just didn't think it was doing anything, so I actually went back over it with a brass brush. This is my steel one, but the brass one has brass bristles, and I would just take that and go over each pad back and forth a few times, and it definitely cleaned up a bunch of them. There's still a few that look pretty gnarly. All of these were a lot easier to get to. Still some pretty crusty ones in there though. Probably could actually hit them with a steel brush and it really wouldn't make things that much worse, honestly. Actually, that's pretty good at getting the crusty off. That'll help with wiping off what's left of the capacitor legs with the regular soldering iron and tip. Like that. Well, that was some extra time spent and make another mess, and you got all these little pieces of metal you got to look for that stick to the board. Make sure they're not shorting out legs and stuff. Almost be worth it to clean it again. So looks like we got at least 1, 2, two caps that are totally messed up on the pads, and it seems like there was maybe one more that was loose. A lot of traces to look at and make sure. There's that one pad missing there. Also a bunch of traces that look darkened, like they might need to be checked.